Hey everyone, Sean here, and welcome to another review. Today we're going to go back to Invincible season 4 because it, finished. This is actually my second time recording this because unfortunately the audio from the first one was just trashed. So I guess it gives me an excuse to kind of approach things a little differently. And I'm going to go ahead and just open up the spoilers. So if you haven't watched it already, go ahead and watch it. The TLDR is that, yeah, I think the writing and everything is still top notch for Invincible, but there are obvious things that a lot of people have been complaining about still, and it's very apparent. So take that into mind. So, anyways, Invincible season 4, I think it was a pretty good experience in my book. However, there are very, very apparent faults that this season suffers. And the obvious one, the biggest elephant in the room, of course, is the animation quality and its sort of lopsided nature. If you really look at if you even like take a look back on season 1, which I kind of did for certain episodes, if you really look at like episode 1, and then even the one episode that featured the Flaxons and then Omni-Man just ripping through their planet and everything, that lighting was just like top notch. Like it was really cool, very artsy, or just that artistic visionary was definitely there for season 1. But by the time we get to season 4, it really, really went missing. Really, there's no real interesting shots of certain sequences. They don't really like play around with the lighting, the way things shine off, and like the highlights and such like that. It really comes off as flat by comparison, and so that was like some of the things that I would like to add into this animation complaint. It definitely takes away from the visual experience that Invincible could have, for an animation show like this. I understand, and of course, I understand that the budget isn't really entirely there, and then of course the schedule is rather cutthroat by comparison, and it really sucks because I think the schedule is still continuing on like this. They're gonna release season 5 sometime next year, so it's still that same kind of schedule. Maybe they did something a little different for the next season. I don't know, but I'm kind of expecting, unfortunately, that we will see, that continuing for another season at least. It kind of sucks because also this is the Viltrumite War. This is the season of the Viltrumite War, at least the beginning of it anyway. But I guess that's like the perspective of things. Anyway, point being, like what was presented, it could have been a lot more interesting. I mean, of course, only in key moments, yes, it does really shine in the animation quality of things. But even then, it has still plenty of room to improve on. Invincible is such a high ceiling sort of show, but we're not reaching there. The unfortunately the team, whether they have not enough of the budget or not enough of time, it's one or the other, or maybe both, really, and that really affects how things can turn out. So the ceiling is not met. The top of that potential is not met. And again, Invincible does have plenty room for potential, and none of that is quite met. It's only like a little, you could say maybe just above average, but even then, I think that's a bit of a stretch. With all with that consistent sort of samey shading and the line art and everything, very, very much monotone in that regard. Again, they don't really play around with the interesting lighting, apart from very, very, very few moments, such as the planet blowing up, and then of course the very end with Alan the alien, right? Few moments like that, of course, and then so that alone you can you can have a field day with, right? Because of course this is an animated show, and in these animated shows, cartoons and everything, anime and all that stuff is the one of the key elements, of course, besides the writing, of course, is the animation quality. You really have to do it justice. You really have to bring it to the table in order for it to really set itself apart. Because otherwise, it's just gonna wind up, being a part of the slop that we've seen, especially in anime, like with all the isekai slop and all the other, harem slop and slop this, slop that. You know, um, it'll it could wind up like that. But fortunately, there are some things that they really carry the show continuing on from the previous seasons, which is, of course, the writing. That's very top notch for the most part. It's not perfect, but it's very top notch, if anything. And then, of course, you have the performances by those same voice actors, and of course, the debut of some new ones for the new characters. But yeah, the continuing voice acting sort of quality is still consistent in this season. One scene that does really come to mind that really really shines in that department is the scene with Debbie and Omni Man, or Nolan. With Debbie just giving out her all, thanks to Sandra Oh, right? Like, especially by the time she starts punching Nolan in the chest and everything, and she just aches in pain, right? Having her hand all bloody and stuff. And that was the one time Nolan got to see Debbie's blood like that because of that sort of context. So that was a very powerful scene, and of course, it really largely is thanks to the voice actors and actresses. And I do feel at times, and I do agree on this also, that the voice actors really, or the voice acting really does outshine the animation quality here. It's such a shame that for a show like this, when all the other engines are firing up their cylinders and all the cylinders are hitting and pumping all that stuff, and then you have that one cylinder that's the animation part, just like kind of misfiring all this stuff, and then it fires correctly during those key moments, like right, like with the conquest stuff and the Thrag stuff and here and other stuff here and there, you know. Otherwise, yes, for the most part, it is still serviceable, right? It's not the most offensive looking thing, but yeah, there are some moments where it gets pretty rough. There was that one part when I forget, it was like a little bomb that passes by one of the Viltrumites from what's her face, Tech Jacket, and it blows up, and then far away you see the guy floating and then just disappears, right? Like that PNG, it's like that, when you animate something, there's that window, and then, like, unfortunately, either, I don't know, they went out of the window, or they forgot to, like, put more frames or something like that for the rest of the clip or something. He just, like, just pops, gone, And of course, a lot of people were memeing on that a little bit during its airing, you know. But yeah, so it's back onto the animation quality being very, very lopsided, to put it nicely. But at least we have the other two sort of important elements for a story to be told, and that's, of course, the two performances and the writing here really, really do carry the show. And it's really, really good, not only from Sandra Oh as Debbie, but Mark with Steven Yeun, and then, of course, J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, of course. They're all great in their own right, especially, when by the time we really get to those juicy bits, and when Mark, comes back from the war and talks to Eve, it really, really, like, that stuff just really sells it. It brings it home, And I will say that Corey, I think it's Corey Pace that voices Thrag. I think he also does a pretty good job as Thrag. I think a lot of the criticism just came from the early sort of debut with Thrag's appearance, making him more roundish, or he comes off more roundish than how he looked in the comics, where the comics were it really shows that he was largely inspired from like celebrities or singers like or figures, I should say, like Freddie Mercury. But Thrag is supposed to be this chisel-looking guy and all, but yeah, like his face, there's something about his face that really doesn't. It was a little bit of a miss, at least in the show. But the moments with Thrag, when he starts to shine, it really balances back out on this little seesaw here for Thrag. And one of the really cool moments, though, going back on the animation part, is when he winds up his punch, and he's so strong that when he wound back that punch, the air around him somehow the vacuum was created, and Nolan was getting sucked in, and then boom, that really powerful uppercut just sends him back out in space. And then when you can see him when he's vulnerable, right? Like when he finds out what the hell Space Racer, Omni-Man, Mark, and Thetis were up to. And he's like, no! And he just, boom, just goes as fast as he can to stop him. But it blew up, right? So those moments and stuff like that really, really bring it through for the show. And this season especially. So obviously the highlights of the show really help kind of forgive, right? At least to me anyway. It helps me forgive most of the bad qualities for this season. The rest of them, like when it comes to characters, I'm either like tolerant, okay, or just like kind of indifferent. One of the other highlights though was Battle Beast. I think Battle Beast did come out more charming and funny in a way. I love the scene with Battle Beast when he tries to socialize a little bit with the folks, with Oliver and Tech Jacket or Zoe being a little nervous before the big battle. And then, Alan's like, hey, you gotta eat something. And then Battlebeast's like, yes, we must satiate before the battle. Otherwise, in the battlefield, we can eat their entrails or the enemy will eat ours. That sort of line. I love it. I love how Battlebeast just comes off as like, kind of like Goku-ish, but in his own version, of course. I just love it. I think it really adds to the charm. He comes off a little more like Knuckles in the movie series, and then the new Sonic Cinematic Universe, I guess you could call it. I think he comes off more like that than anything, which is either way funny. I love Battle Beast for that, and when he got slashed by Thula and then he bleeds, like yes, more. That stuff I do enjoy. I don't know, there's something about Battle Beast, I really do enjoy him, as well as a number of the other characters. Yeah. Thetis, I did enjoy his limited screen time. Unfortunately, yes, he dies. He gets his head ripped off, kind of like in the comics. Yeah, but during his time on the screen, I liked his moments. It definitely was held back by the animation, of course. But I love the moment when Krieg, when he was like ripping through a lot of the citizens of the Coalition planet, he was like, where's the betrayer? And Thetis is just like, here, just punches the shit out of Krieg and just starts to wail on him. Boom, boom, boom. Stuff like that. It really tickled my fancy, and I really enjoy those moments. But then it gets kind of soured by the stiff animation, like the headbutt and stuff like that. Although I did enjoy the scene with Mark and Oliver just piercing through the ship and just like that. It kind of reminds me. I don't know. For some reason I got the vibe I was reminded of back when I played Medal of Honor Rising Sun when the Japanese Zeros dropped the bombs right onto the USS Arizona, and then the Arizona just blows up in that scene, and then like the water just whoosh, the shockwave and everything. I love that scene. I know, like there's controversy because World War II and everything, but I love how they portray that scene, and that's kind of like the vibe that I kind of got from here. And so it's kind of nice to get that sort of reminder of my teenhood. So I thought that was pretty cool. There was another scene I did also enjoy, which was when Oliver, I think he was on that planet. He finally got to catch a breather, right? But then you have Conquest just right behind him like that. Ah, man, like there are plenty of moments like that. I think throughout the show, but especially by the time the Vegemite War did come around. But I do like to also talk about my disappointments, and one of those disappointments was Zoe slash Tech Jacket. Tech Jacket, at least from the comics, from what I was able to look up, is seems to be very fascinating, and he or Tech Jacket in the comics seems to be very powerful in his own right, and of course, a male character and such, So Tech Jacket, the story is that the armor is worn by this alien race that is so weak that they have to make the armor really strong. This like sentient armor, very strong in order for them to even fight against other such alien races. But when you have, of course, a human wear a suit, the humans themselves are stronger than those aliens. So that means having that human or that dude from, I forget his name from the show, or that is from the comics, wore the tech jacket. He's insanely powerful. So imagine, right, if a Viltrumite were to wear that armor, what, right? I don't think they've ever covered that in the comics. Unfortunately, I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they can add that into the show. Who knows? But Zoe here didn't really have a strong first impression overall. I think it was also that lopsidedness too that happened here. It's like Tech Jacket from the what is it, the end of that last season with the mark variants. I think it was like 3. That was the time when we got to see Tech Jacket a little bit, and then you see the scene with the Mark variant with the mustache, I think it was, dead, like with the fingers all fucked up and everything, and then Tech Jacket comes out relatively unscathed. Now, granted, Tech Jacket can self-regenerate with the armor and everything, so that could be that coming into play very much, but still, like the fact that this Tech Jacket was able to handle the Mark variant made me think, oh, Tech Jacket can keep up with the Viltrumites. Unfortunately, it didn't really show so much of that. More so, it kind of comes off as just like pew pew pew, and then they dodge a lot of lasers. Doesn't really do much until some moments where Tech Jacket blasts a more powerful laser, and then it hits him, drives him into the building, and also shoots a bigger one, and nearly misses the female one, and then it kind of singed the side a little bit. And those ones okay, but I didn't really get a strong impression off of this Tech Jacket, apart also from the fact that that the Tech Jacket of itself is very simplified for the show, kind of reflecting that art style of really really simplifying things with the shading and everything. Having said that, I think Zoe has a lot of potential too, or this Tech Jacket has a lot of potential too. She definitely has the ability to not only heal the armor, but armor of other things. Having to fix up Space Racer's mask and everything when he was about to lose his air and all. But he was saved thanks to that ability, which is really cool. I think it's a really cool concept, and I do think that does add to Zoe's thing very much. But I think like just overall the scenes that we really needed for Zoe to shine weren't there. It felt like what was presented to us, I think it was just very, very just not enough. Just short, very short. Comes off short, comes up short, whatever the term is or phrase is for Zoe. Because I did notice too, I did watch a couple of the episodes more than twice, that they really cut down on the actual like fights, like the battles and everything, the actual like battles from planet to planet. I don't know if the comics ever covered them either, but the fact that we had an episode like Herm take up a slot, that episode could have been used to cover the battles, right? To really add and make the other characters shine. You can include Alan, but I think we got enough of Alan. That could have been more Battle Beast. That could have been more Tech Jacket. That could have been more of just everything else. Maybe more Viltrumites, more politics, more scenes of bonding and all that. Now we do see some of that with a little bit of Zoe and Oliver, and there is potential that Zoe might get together with Oliver. Who knows? And maybe Oliver might live, But it seems like there are some deviations, but not really. It still follows the story very strongly, especially with what was thought to be Debbie just completely dumping Nolan. Not at all. Does not want to get together with him ever. And when in the comics, Debbie, I think, seemingly gets back with Nolan much quicker, if not decently quick. I think Paul still exists in the comics, he does exist from the comics, but the way he went out like a maniac. Unfortunately, I think that's how it went. But in the show, I guess things didn't work out with the two, so Paul and Debbie are still friends, and Paul took it like a champ. He absolutely is a much better character, a little more fleshed out here than it seems like with Paul in the comics. I mean, a lot better than Amber, I can tell you that much, but that's not saying much. Anyways, yeah, Paul, he really shines also in that scene. He sees Debbie in her highlights, right? And he, in fact, uses that understanding to help out Debbie, because Debbie's like, oh, I know Oliver, I'm worried about him, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you are no stranger to the aliens and the wars and space and all that stuff. There is a spaceship out there. Go see him. You have the ability to go to space and see Oliver. And that, really woke up Debbie. Like, yeah, I can do that. But there's Nolan. But you know what? Hey, she really wanted to go see Nolan as the mother that she really wants to be for Oliver. She just really wants to see him. This is the point, and really thought of it, of course. But Debbie made the choice to go with Nolan, as much as she hates it. But hey, gotta go see Oliver. And after Oliver got super fucked up, unfortunately, he always gets fucked up in like the best parts of the show. Like starting from like Conquest, and then you have, of course, more Conquest, and then Thrag. Thrag really messed him up with the, messing up his hand. I think ripping up. He ripped off his arm, and then he just boom, just knocks the jaw off of him. Man, it's pretty brutal, pretty visceral at that too. On top of the other scene with fucking Conquest ripping the guts out of Mark and everything, which I already talked about in the mid-season review. Like Jesus, that acting also was great. It was great. Though unfortunately, Conquest does die there. Yes, so it's very unfortunate that we don't get to really see Conquest anymore. At least for right now, I think. Anyway, I could be wrong, but this main Conquest that we know and like and love, perhaps, is dead. Which is unfortunate because, yeah, of the very ending of season 4. But largely, I did enjoy it, especially by the time of the end. Very powerful way to end this season, with Thrag ultimately giving Mark that the proposal slash the terms, right. He gives him the ultimatum because obviously the planet blew up. He's like, well, yeah, you blew up our planet, so we're gonna live in yours, but we're not gonna fuck with anything, and as long as you don't fuck with us, we're not gonna fuck with you. Basically, do you agree to those terms? And Mark had no choice really, having to see the vision of from his PTSD, seeing his loved ones, imagining his loved ones getting killed by Thrag, one by one. Debbie, Eve, and even Cecil for something, right? Like Cecil got it too, in the PTSD moments, and that definitely justified it for Mark to say yes. Especially when he was pretty much put into the position where it's like he has no choice, and yet he still has to make a choice. I thought that was pretty powerful, especially when Thrag says it or points it out. And I do think it's funny that the Viltrumites that you do see hiding on Earth, you see Lucan in the suit, Anissa also in like some dress or outfit, and then you see Krieg, of course. Krieg already is like, he's already blending in. He loves it. He loves his life on Earth already. He has the eye patch. He's with a girl already. He's smoking a cigarette. He's like hanging out at like some biker sort of setting. He loves the motorcycles already, man. And he instantly folded to life on Earth. So if there's a time when someone's gonna talk back at Thrag, it's Krieg. I feel. I thought that was really funny, especially when Krieg, early on, I think it was like during season 3, says something about like, oh, Nolan, you breed with these disgusting humans, or whatever. And then yeah, now he's like, Nolan, I'm sorry, man. I apologize. I did not recognize your game. And now I see it. Now I do. I understand, and I fold. So I thought that was funny. Other than that, it's really gonna be me just like nitpicking, or not really nitpicking. I mean, there might be some nitpicking, like the voice changes, right? What was it? William, I think it was, got his voice changed. Robot got his voice changed, but that's a little more understandable. But at the same time, I do miss the first robot voice. I forget the actor's name, but he was like from like Star Trek and stuff. He's really cool. I feel him being robot was really cool, and I will miss it. But then you have William, whose voice drastically changed. It's very noticeable. I really like the first one. I think it was like Andrew Reynolds, right? Reynolds. But I guess something happened, so he's out of the picture as William. So we're gonna have to get used to this William for the next season, whenever he appears in the show. Hopefully we don't see more of that, but unfortunately we will see at least one more because of Powerplex. Aaron Paul thought it's too much to voice Powerplex, so there's going to be another one. we'll see who takes the mantle whenever Powerplex appears. And I am curious as to see how Powerplex will be by the time he makes his next appearance. So obviously, when it comes to the deviations and stuff like that, the only big deviation was the episode 4 with Herm. And it tells, it really unfolds the demon side of hell and what hell actually is. And you have Satan getting his crown back, and he had that transformation, which honestly, it's not my cup of tea. I didn't like it. I know what they're trying to do with it, but it didn't work for me. I actually liked him better when he was that smaller old dude. That's my opinion on it. I mean, it's cool to hear Bruce Campbell and all, but the form, man, that form is just like, it's a little disappointing in seeing that he didn't really like shine all that much during his fight scenes. Maybe he's holding back on something. He's just like hiding his powers away from Mark for a potential sort of like big thing that will happen in the future, perhaps. Yes, I do understand that Herm was supposed to be like the story that the creator really wanted to tell, but didn't have the time to do so. And now the show is the time to do it, I guess. Unfortunately, I think that would have been a really good spin-off show, kind of like or special, kind of like how they treated at the Adam and Eve special. It should have been that, really, and I think a lot more people would have forgiven it. And it still, talks about the demons and such, especially with Demon Darkblood. But having said that, I am interested to see where that goes. They already laid it out on the table, so might as well eat it, right? I guess, or take a bite out of it. But yes, there are a number of things being set up for season 5, of course, including the Viltrumites hiding and all that stuff, Thrag, and what's next for Mark and Eve and stuff like that. Now, speaking of which, I really did enjoy the scenes with Mark and Eve together. While I do disagree that Eve should have kept the baby because she aborted it and all. But hey, I mean, moments like that I guess do happen. They panic. They have to make a choice. It's a big move, right? To have a baby, and especially when someone like Mark is away, and if he when he comes home to see the baby and all, or you see someone like Eve being pregnant, yeah, it'll definitely make things a little harder to process, I guess, in a way. But I wish she kept the baby, if I'm gonna be real. But man, I don't know. One side of me really tells me like maybe the baby isn't so dead. It's a Viltrumite baby, so maybe it survived the abortion process, perhaps, or they'll just have another one. Pretty simple. So we'll see. We'll really see about that. My other question or whatever, or something to look forward to, is what the hell is going to happen with Cecil, right? Because Cecil lied to Mark once again. And yeah, I guess Mark was too fucked up from his experience with the Viltrumite War. But he didn't really question, like, hey, why was Conquest alive? But yeah. Well, I guess we'll get around to that. And speaking of Cecil, I really like the scene with Nolan and Cecil together once again. Nolan says sorry, and then Cecil's like, I mean, not enough, but it's something. But almost die. What was it, like over 2,000 times, and maybe we'll talk again. Because that's like the estimated number of people who died at Chicago during that incident in season 1. So the road for Nolan is going to be long for him to earn back that sort of chance and forgiveness especially from like Debbie and Cecil, if he really wants to talk to Cecil once again. I mean, of course, there's like still other questions like, okay, Alan being the new leader of the coalition, Data's being dead. What's the choice Alan's gonna make? Because Thetis left the last message that all the Viltrumites should die. All the Viltrumites are dangerous. They have to die. So the Scourge Virus 2.0 is right there for you to deploy. And all the Viltrumites are going to be dead for sure. Seemingly, right? It's a new powerful Scourge Virus. And speaking of which, yes, you do get to see the backstory on the Viltrumites more and really see how just war heavy they are, to the point where they even are willing to kill each other to wipe out any possible signs of weakness. And that's what they did. And they also suffer the consequences for that. That's kind of like sort of the point, just to show, hey, this happens to this alien race because they had the choices they made. And even, I think Thrag knows it, but he just wants to double down on it. And still believes that an alien race like that can still shine. Well, when you have already 40 left, yeah, I think enough's enough. But there is one other thing I haven't really talked about, and that's Space Racer. Space Racer or Space Rider really shows how OP it is, with the gun and everything. Because literally that was the key to like blowing up all, not only the battleships, but also the planet, right? And knowing that the laser doesn't stop, it eventually can hit a random planet when he fires it. That's why he's always kind of careful. But, he goes in and fires it at the Viltrumites, which is funny. But hey, man, you do what you gotta do to win the war. That's the thing about war, is, sometimes you gotta really well, as someone put it, to fool thy enemies is to fool thy allies, right? I learned that from a pretty funny incident that happened in a video game, but anyway, or a mobile game. But anyway, enough of that. I did enjoy like the smaller things too, like the friendship between Nolan and Alan, all that other stuff. But I just wanted to get my overall thoughts. Oliver. I think Oliver is still, or I can tolerate Oliver. He's a kid and everything. Yes, he's kind of written a little more stereotypical, but I still enjoyed him. Yes, of course. Unfortunately, he does get fucked up. I did enjoy his bonding with his dad. Of course, I enjoyed how Nolan sort of handled it. I enjoyed their time enjoying the planet, right? It's fine. It's funny. I just enjoyed what was given for what it is. It does have a lot of room for potential. Do I see and expect for that to be fixed immediately for the next season? I don't think so, but I do hope to see that in the next season and beyond that, of course. I mean, hey, I could always be wrong, and maybe they have the potential to turn things around in the upcoming season, right? For next year. We'll have to wait and see. So, also, it was kind of funny and cool to see that Invincible and The Boys was sort of airing at the same time. And we'll never get to see that again. So at least I got to sort of enjoy that as well. It's on top of everything. All right. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Everything else I haven't mentioned. I enjoyed, of course, the music is enjoyable to an extent, but it's really about the writing, the performances, and key moments of the animation. It's still serviceable, but there's a lot of room for improvement, really. With all that factored into mind, I think I'm gonna give this seasons of Invincible an 8 out of 10. I think it's pretty safe to. It's a safe 8 out of 10. Those 2 points though really could have been the animation, right? The animation could have really brought it home. But the other two factors, like the writing and the performances, were really good. I think it makes up for it. So I think it deserves an 8 out of 10. Looking forward to more. Really itching for it. And then, we have the boys to sort of like scratch that itch for a little bit, and then, yeah, it'll be gone for good. Sadly. But let's enjoy for what we have, and that's all we can do, really. So, anyways, we'll see about the Scourge virus. We'll see about Nolan and Debbie and Mark and Eve and Thrag and the rest of the Viltrumites, how they'll fare in the next season. All right. So it also seems like they're going with the pace they're going at. It's going to end around season 8-ish, or maybe even 9. It all depends on how they do things from this point on. All right. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if you like to talk about Invincible in the comment section below. We'd love to read them, of course. And then if you guys can subscribe, it really helps out, and I do appreciate it. This has been my review for the overall experience of Season 4 for Invincible. Again, it's an 8 out of 10. Thanks, and hope to see you all in the next video. Sean out.